Well, we're opening up this bulletin by going live to our Parliament studio in Cape Town, where Cindy Mabi, my colleague, is joining us.
Thank you so much, and good morning to our viewers, and welcome to the special broadcast here at the Parliament Precinct. It is the State of the Nation address, much anticipated. A little bit later on at 7 p.m. this evening, the President of the Republic will take to the podium and address us in terms of the tasked message and agreements that he would have to fulfill for the remainder of his tenure, where the economy is going to grow. Matapelo, earlier on you also reported on speculation around the deployment of the army, where people were saying it's a more intensified a security measure that is unnecessary. We heard criticism from the opposition as well, saying all these things are just a huge inconvenience. Nonetheless, Minister of Defense Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula explaining that the deployment of the army is essentially there as a logistical oversight, if you will. But we're joined in studio now by Dr. Danisa Baloyi. She is the president of the Black Business Council. We have Siso Mahlangwa, ANN7 resident political analyst. To both of you, welcome. It really is, there's a sense of excitement in the anticipation as well, a little bit of anxiety as what the president will do, and a silent, I guess, angst. Dr. Baloyi, if you will explain the mood here this morning.
I think the mood is jovial. You know, I walked from my hotel to Parliament this morning, and just talking to people, how do you feel? People are looking forward to the president's speech this evening. In general, people I don't know, people I was meeting in the street, I always chat up people.
Yeah.
But people want to get tangibles out of the president's speech tonight. They want to know how government is going to work with business. And by the way, we had the business and government luncheon 2 days ago. How they're going to work together to create jobs for people and to make sure that the changes in South Africa are not about our government alone. Government should set the tone, but business should come to the party. And to me, that's important. This partnership between government and business has to happen.
All right, let's deal with the other nuances as well, the side shows, if you will, the so-called alternative State of the Nation address. We saw the DA having one, Save South Africa as well. The anxiety, I suppose, that I was talking about was the expectation that there may be disruptions. We've heard of such as Sfiso. If you can give us a bit of more context.
Well, it's to be expected that there's going to be opposition. Because the democracy allows for opposition. It also allows for robust interaction. It allows members of the National Assembly to walk out if they do. But it also allows, by rights of the Constitution, the Rights and Privileges Act of the National Assembly, does allow Ms. Thandi Modise or Ma Balegambete to call in the Sergeant at Arms if and when necessary. However, the military is not just deployed for protection here. This is the State of the Nation address. The military of any republic, Cindy, is a representation of that country's militant approach to security. It is a security feature, but it is also like the protea, a band of our sovereignness as a nation. So the military is not deployed here, I believe, to show that they can deal with members of the opposition. If members of the opposition should attempt something realistically, there are just 25 people within the National Assembly. But it should also be viewed as they are here to show the strong force of our nation. These broadcasts are going to go all over the world, really. We've got international media covering this. It should be viewed as our military is strong, our Sergeant at Arms are strong, the SAPS is a strong force, and because the president will be speaking here not just as the president of the ANC and not just the head of state, he's also speaking as the commander of the armed forces, because that is also a position he holds awarded to him by the Republic. The SONA in brackets of
the alternative SONA.
The alternative SONA of Mr. Pichana, as he calls it, you know, his real state of the nation address. Sometimes I said I put on my leather jacket at home in front of the mirror and want to perform the moonwalk. It doesn't make me Michael Jackson. In my head, I can be. I think Mr. Pichana is allowed to believe he can be whoever he wants. He can have his SONA. Although I am concerned that can people build up their own national assemblies now? Can I define my own cabinet if I want to tomorrow and act as a head of state? The State of the Nation address is one that should be given and is only given by the head of state. And he's not the head of state, though we may credit him or discredit him. He's not just the head of state by virtue of him being the head of the executive. He is the democratically elected president of the republic. And I think whether or not I'm a DA member or an EFF member, it is important for us to come and take notes and then to go back and look at what the president has said within the growth of this economy and South Africa as a nation. Because whether I believe in President Zuma or not, I am still a citizen of the republic. And this speech should be a focus for me on this year, what to expect, what should happen to the country. We have many things to hear about today, fees, we've got the matter of Esidimeni Life Care Hospital. We want to hear issues of health care. We really want to issues of the indigent to be addressed, and things that are very important to me individually are issues like a radical transformation. I want to hear how the president is going to deal with white monopoly capital. And in this speech, I would like him to remove the gloves and deal with the issue that has been overlooked or kind of shadowed for so long. That's what we're expecting from this speech.
And I think what in the climate, the political climate that we find ourselves in, it's polarized because of our racial background and the fact that the elephant in the room is often overlooked because we are busy with all the other stuff in the periphery, that of his character or the fact that he's been maligned and consistently being discredited in his tenure as president, but the issues which are fundamental remain, that of inequality, the fact that the gap between the rich and poor is still growing. Very little has changed economically for the majority African black. So he needs to define that and put the meat onto the bone, the nuts and bolts of it, but he can't dislodge the white monopoly capital, as we're saying, if legislation still perpetuates this white supremacy, if you will. So there's quite a lot that he needs to unpack.
You know, bread and butter issues, I'll start to listen to the naysayers if they were to tell me how we're going to transform this economy. They're not talking about that, and I just shut my ears to the noise because I deal with members of business. My members want to know that tomorrow they'll be operating. Their businesses won't be shut. They will be able to progress and grow their businesses, that the environment will allow them to grow from being tiny, from being small to big business. And at the moment, the regulatory framework as we stand in South Africa is a problem. We have to deal with the framework that makes it impossible for the IDC, for the NEF to fund our people, because if you say you'll give me 90%, I must come up with the 10%. Where will I get it? I can tell you without fear or favor that most of the very big people that we are talking about who are rich today will reside in this province were given money by the IDC to start their businesses. Most of them were poor. So if the kickstart were given in those apartheid years for people to start the businesses, and then we come in, we make it tougher for our people. Let me give you an example. We were here on the 7th in Parliament presenting our views on the reform around the issue of insurance, the insurance bill. The information that came out, and those are the things that I think the people who are complaining too much should be focusing on. Only 50 billion is managed by black asset managers. That's a crime. And 6 trillion, I don't know how to write that in numbers, is managed by white business. And then we're not outraged. We don't believe there has to be a radical economic transformation. To me, those are tangible, those are facts. If we go to the PIC today and unpack as to who is managing most of the funds of the PIC, of the GEPF, it's basically not black business. So when we say, let us look at radical economic transformation, we're talking also about where business, government can really crack the whip.
Will it happen, I suppose, economic freedom in our lifetime, in the sense that if those very structures are not decolonized and they are modeled in post-apartheid South Africa, which will enable the previously disadvantaged and still historically disadvantaged to participate equally in the economy? With these systems in place, very little else is going to change.
Well, the thing about decolonization is that it's always going to be opposed. And if you look at Marxist politics, the science of politics is that if a regime has existed for over a certain period of time, overruling that regime will take double the time to reverse the minds or to reverse the hands of the oppressors. South Africa will face a mammoth task in removing the hand of the handlers per se and giving South Africans the perfect ideology for their democracy. It's not an accident that it is President Zuma who has been attacked by white monopoly, hated by the media, defamed by people, because he's an individual who has seemed to take on, the agents of white monopoly capital and to even speak about radical transformation. It's unbelievable that in 2017 we're still talking about transformation in the first place, and we're still talking about it hush-hush. It's unbelievable. At the business dinner, there were opposition, ideas. People saying, oh no, but there is the NDP. Why do you need transformation? And so it's unbelievable that someone may stand up today and say, why do we need transformation in this country when South Africa is one of the most unequal societies in the world? So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a mammoth task. But what I think the president has to do is that he has to give himself the liberty project and the legacy of saying, I'm the man who took on monopoly capital and I brought decolonization to South Africa. He will be hated. It's going to be a heated, argument today, but he's got to make a compelling speech. But after the speech, he's got to go back to Pretoria and start administrating those things. And if it calls for a cabinet reshuffle, if he's got to remove the gloves, both from the union buildings and Luthuli House, perhaps that's what he has got to do. But we cannot sit another year or another 23 years and protect the ideologies of people who are perplexed and conflicted because they are bank shareholders, they are heads of treasury, and they are the handlers of white monopoly capital. In that case, we will never get rid of poverty. We can never deal with economic transformation. I think the president has got to make an example and today say, I am serious about radical transformation. I've listened to SONA speeches for many years. I think this one is the speech that must be taken with a lot of active cognizance. It should not just be, the beautiful lines of an orator. It shouldn't be many pages of a wonderfully written speech, compiled by narratives and academics. It should be an action plan of how tomorrow morning and on Monday morning, from his helm in Pretoria, he's going to collapse the pyramid of white monopoly capital, deal with the issue of land, deal with the issue of radical transformation, deal with the issues of the indigent, deal with the issues of SOEs, deal with the issue of financial inclusion. If President Zuma does not deal with that, the ANC is going to have a very serious problem in 2019.
I couldn't agree with you more, but it's also the narrative that says treat business and industry and the markets with kid gloves, pussyfoot around it. You know, you need to inspire confidence that all these ideas of an equal or egalitarian society can coexist if we gradually and constitutionally do things until we get to the promised land, as it were. And this is what has brought us to where we are.
Yes.
The Biki Biki Makmir, in the sense of how black people share in the economy. You could rewrite the SONA speech yourself. You've seen so many. And the hope is that this time around it will in fact materialize. There was murmurings of a cabinet reshuffle, with some saying, you know, Pravin Gordhan could be targeted because of the infighting or the fact that he seemed to be sort of in stalemate with the president. Be that as it may, a reshuffle may be required in order to fulfill the radical economic transformation.
Well, we live in a constitutional democracy, and the president has the prerogative to reshuffle the cabinet whenever he wants. As to who he puts, who he doesn't put, who he removes, to me that's not the issue. I want the person who he'll bring there to make a difference to our people. As long as there is no difference, we're in deep trouble. The reality of the situation is that the inequality in our country, the gap has so widened that we can't ignore it. I cannot believe that there are people who one of the very rich people said, oh, it's now fashionable to bash rich people. Well, we can go back and look at where that very rich person comes from, because he grew up poor, he made money and got money from places like the IDC to build the wealth. We are saying, let it continue to happen. Business, big business, should not reluctantly come to the party. I think they should give back some of the money. Most of these retail stores that are owned, majority of the people who make them so prosperous. I woke up this morning and I found out how much the CEO of Sasol has made, how much the CEO of ShopRite has made, etc., etc. You look at that and you say, my goodness, what a difference it can make to just share some of the wealth of this country. And that's all that we are saying. This wealth belongs to all of us. It must be shared, or there won't be any to share.
You know, we talk so romantically about the Constitution protecting the rights, and the criticism against President Jacob Zuma that he didn't uphold or respect the Constitution, forgetting the preamble thereof that it needed to address the injustices of the past. So we always go on all these other glossy things without dealing with the matters which are fundamentally unjust about the society. Do you think the president will touch on that, especially to encourage that sense of benevolence, if you will, from business to come forward, reinvest that 800 billion that they're sitting on to try and get this country on a better footing?
From us, my take is that we look at the banks, or let me say financial services. We forget that you bank there, I bank there, my grandma banks there, everybody banks within those banks. But to what extent do we get the return from the banks? As ordinary folk, we don't. The money goes to be managed by other people, and it is channeled not towards black people. Let's look at what is happening now. There's going to be a fund that by business. Let's see how it rolls out. Will it make a dent? Is it a beginning? Are we going to get more out of it?
The people demand more, certainly. Dr. Danisa Baloyi, thanks so much for joining us. Fiso Mahlango, ANN7 resident political analyst, joining us here from the State of the Nation address. We take a quick ad break and hand over to Matapelo back in studio. Do stay with us.